about them Irish?
I can't take it anymore. I need a national championship.
This is the Four Horsemen Podcast.
And we are back. Another off-season edition of the Four Horsemen Podcast. I'm Dylan, joined by Tim as always, and we got a special guest for you guys today. With us from CFB Mafia, it's Nathan Baumer. Nathan, welcome to the show. A very awesome BYU fan, I must say. So you'll be treated well here until game week, and then things might get a little feisty. But welcome to the show, and how you doing?
I'm doing great, Dylan. It's nice to meet you, Tim. You guys, we've been around each other for almost 4 years, so I appreciate any time we can get on and talk about college football.
Yeah, it's great, and there's a lot going on in college football. So for people who aren't familiar with Nate's work, Nate covers kind of all of college football. It started off as the Big 12 Mafia and really focused on kind of the politics and law behind what's going on here, specifically with the realignment stuff. I know you guys are very, you discuss that a lot, and this is something our audience is not super used to. So I think it'll be great insight to have you come on and maybe talk a little bit about what's going on in the Senate. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are hearing things about the Senate. They're hearing about the Protect College Sports Act. Do you want to just kind of give us your insight on what it is and what its future might hold?
Sure. The purpose of the Protect College Sports Act, and I don't want to sound like I'm talking down to your viewers because I'm not trying to do that, but basically there's a big push to consolidate or to limit where college football is going next. It's very obvious that the SEC and the Big Ten have all the power. The Protect College Sports Act came out as a way to constrict and constrain maybe them going to super conferences or their media values being 2 and 3 times what even the ACC and the Big 12 are. And so it would really, Cody Campbell is a president of the Regents at Texas Tech University. He is friends with Donald Trump. They got together, dreamed this thing up. And basically, they're just trying to take control. They want to limit the control that the Big Ten and the SEC have. And to do that, they put in a bunch of provisions. It's an ugly bill, in my opinion, trying to do too much all at once. They're not slowing down. They don't want to negotiate. They really don't want to even have athletes in the room when they're talking. And so it's just a monstrosity, to be quite honest. I know people, if you're not in the P2 or you're not Notre Dame, you're concerned. You're concerned your school's going to be left out. You're concerned that the rivalries that you have will completely go away because eventually these other conferences will take over and potentially break away. So they're trying to control all that. But at the end of the day, I think what we're looking at now is everybody's talking about the Senate. It's been the Senate since April when this thing was initially introduced in Congress. Even if it gets it through the Senate, and not, I don't know if they're going to get a vote on the Senate even, but let's assume they do. There's no way this thing's going to pass in the House. And my reasoning behind that is politics. Politics in America is very, very impactful on our lives. And Democrats have a lot of voice in the House, and generally they're on league with the athletes in general. They like unions. A CBA would be fantastic. Anything we can do to give the players what they're the ones we wouldn't even be talking today if the athletes weren't out there and playing these games. Like, why does everybody act like they are the resource to be manipulated? They're really not. They're partners, just like NFL and just like Major League Baseball. I know a lot of people don't want to look at it that way, but at the end of the day, there is no football if the athletes aren't there to play. And in my opinion, they need more protections. And this bill doesn't put a CBA in for them. And the Congressional Black Caucus, at the end of the day, has a major voice in the House. And I don't think there's any chance it could get through.
Yeah, we'll touch on that in just a moment to kind of just backpedal about why Congress is even getting involved here. The issue is antitrust. So when people talk about, transfer rules, the one-time transfer eligibility
Right?
rule, or eligibility in general, or caps on NIL or roster spending, whatever it may be, anytime the NCAA tries to put a rule in place, it gets struck down because of an antitrust violation, meaning the NCAA has market power over college athletics, and any kind of restraint of trade, as per the Sherman Act, is in violation of the competition of the country. That's the purpose, is to prevent monopolies, and the NCAA is a monopoly. So in order to govern ourselves, one of two things needs to happen. Either one, we get a congressional exemption, which is kind of the route everybody on the university sides prefer. The alternative is a collective bargaining agreement, but that's going to happen at a conference level in order to avoid having market power. So even if you were to go the CBA route, there's a lot of legal uncertainties with this. So this is why this is being pushed right now. The SEC and the Big Ten are getting very fed up of waiting. The college football expansion is another issue that people are getting fed up on. And there's talk about people leaving or breaking away. We don't want to go down that rabbit hole just yet. We'll see what happens. But the point of this act is to limit those things, is to restrict those things. For example, the coaching changes. No coaches will be allowed to leave midseason for another team. That'll be a rule. There's regional rivalry protections. There's a cap that is going to be much higher than it currently is, which is something Notre Dame supports. But the reason, you and I think this is going to fail is because of the House. And, to kind of just catch up our listeners there, the SCORE Act, which was the first piece of legislation that tried to do this, was dead on arrival in the House. And the reason for that, we don't usually talk politics here, so we're not going to make any value judgments. We're not going to say we're endorsing anything or discouraging anything. We'll just kind of say what happened. But the Congressional Black Caucus that Nathan had referred to opposed the law, the SCORE Act, because of certain voter ID legislation that is being passed at a state level, that certain schools, they felt like, were not voicing a strong enough opinion. It's a political thing. I'm not going to take a side on it. But that nothing in the Senate Act, the Safe College Football Sports or Safe College Sports Act, nothing there has changed that, right? The Congressional Black Caucus's issue with, let's say, certain schools is at a more fundamental political level. And for that reason, you and I are very skeptical that this is ever going to get passed, because you obviously have to get it past both chambers before it goes to the president's desk. So with that said, Tim, you're the Notre Dame fan who doesn't follow this stuff. What are your thoughts on it? And do you have kind of what is your view on it?
Yeah, as the individual Black Caucus on the show, I think that they need to just find a way to get something through. If it's not anything, at least the bare minimum. Like you said, Nathan, they're putting too much into it. You got to have a flexible bill that's going to get passed, and then you can amend it as you go on. Yeah. But you have to start somewhere, and starting somewhere means taking one step, not jumping 20 yards. I think that it is absolutely silly that politics are dictating the future of college sports in general, whether it's this act or the fact that we're even having this discussion. I think this is ridiculous. If the NCAA just had their crap together 10, 15 years ago, we wouldn't be here now. But can't go back and change any of that until I get a time machine, at which point Notre Dame's going to rip off 30 straight natties.
There you go.
From 90 to now, because I'm going to make sure of it. So I do have one question, though, because I thought there was some sort of representation among the players in the first one, the SCORE Act. Is that the same in the Safe College Sports Act? I think they're going to put together not a CBA, but like a players union of like different representatives from the players that would be able to voice concerns on governing boards, student athletic governing boards and stuff like that for college football. Am I missing that? Or
yeah, they've had the SCORE Act had an individual. I can't remember if he was a current. Yeah, I think he was a rep from actually the University of Utah that was at the big announcement when Trump sat there and he was surrounded on both sides by all these people that came to fawn at his feet. There was somebody at that, and there was another one that was included. And I think it was a retired college football player that participated in the SCORE Act. The Protect College Sports Act has none of that. It doesn't restrict the ability to create a CBA, but they have not been sitting there. Let's talk about this. Let's see what the average athlete is going to require. What should they receive so that they can sort of give also? Because this should be a negotiation, and that's the problem right now is there is no negotiation. They're going and they're doing these discussions where they're trying to propose amendments to this bill. But at the end of the day, and thank you so much, Dylan, that was a fantastic summary of the very baseline, highest level things. But in my opinion, why reward the NCAA and the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, and ACC with an antitrust exemption? Why would you? It's a reward. It is the thing. And the minute that is granted without major reform to the rest of the sport, they can roll back NIL. They can roll back participation. They can roll back arbitrarily, by the way, all of these things because they would be screened from state courts, which is right now what they don't want. So what I've proposed and what I've talked to legal experts about, even an assistant attorney general of antitrust for the state of Florida, Danielle Kelly, they need to just throw this thing away, come back next year, and take the next 2 years and build something. Start from scratch and break it into smaller bills, more agile bills, as you guys were just discussing. You know, you can do an antitrust exemption, but give them a CBA at the exact same time. If you do that, then both sides are protected. The athletes are going to keep what they've got. That's essentially what the CBA would do. And then the universities, the conferences, and all of college football can now start rolling back some of these policies, like the Brendan Sorsby temporary restraining order. And just those are just dumb, right? That never should have happened. And yet some activist judge decides he's just going to, he wants to be in the news for a few more cycles. So he does something stupid like that. So at the end of the day, Congress is going to do what they're going to do, but the A4 conferences have been begging for years, especially since NIL came out, not because of any legislation, but because of a civil lawsuit. The House thing was a civil lawsuit. There's no law there. Since that time, they have been begging for an antitrust exemption. And I have been screaming, if that happens, it will break the sport. It will absolutely turn it all upside down if there isn't a counterbalance to offset a lot of those declarations that I guarantee you the A4 are going to put in there, basically saying they can even shut all of college football down. They can say, it's only going to be us. 2 conferences, 3 conferences, we're just going to go out and do our own thing and take it from the rest of America. And in my opinion, that would be a massive mistake. So that's where I'm passionate about is I don't think you should just hurry and rush through an antitrust exemption for these guys because they don't deserve it. They've done nothing for decades, and now all of a sudden they want to roll it all back overnight. Literally in months, they want to roll back damage that's been done for 3 decades. Why would we want to reward the people who've screwed it up and gotten us to where we're at?
So what if we did a limited antitrust exemption where you have, like, you can't roll back NIL, you can't do this, you can...
That's what the CBA would be. I think that you could put those both in one bill, and I think you could at least try to pass that. I would agree with that one.
To piggy off that too, and something you said earlier, Tim, about athletes being considered and consulted. There's negotiations going on right now, but it's just 2 conferences. The athletes are having no say with Senate right now. Nobody's reaching out to athletes. There is no single body, and it's, to Nate's point, we're gonna sound like big pro labor here, but they've been taken advantage of for 100 years.
Well, there's a big problem.
They've been one of the most mistreated groups in the workforce because they produce immense value, and they've been barred from compensation for the longest time. So yeah, to your point, Nate, they haven't been consulted at all. And the only ones that have been consulted are the two antagonists of the whole thing, which is the SEC and the Big Ten, because they're not happy with what the Senate came up with. They begged the Senate for something, and then on your show, Nate, I called it monkey's paw. Right? They didn't get what they wanted. Section 205 is the big one that they're upset with because it limits conference expansion. Originally, no school was going to be allowed to move. They've relaxed that a bit, and now they're trying to cap it at 19 or 20. That's kind of up in the air, with a rule that a team will have to go independent for 5 years before joining another conference if they're going Power 4 to Power 4.
That's crazy.
It's extremely restrictive. So obviously the conferences aren't happy with that. But if they get everything else they want on antitrust, on a salary cap, on pooling rights, because the way it was currently written, everyone but the Big Ten and SEC could trigger an automatic pooling of rights if they all got together and agreed. It would pool everybody's rights together and be able to, distribute that money that the Big Ten would have among the whole country. So they're against that. They want pooling to be voluntary. So this is the problem: is they're negotiating with the conferences and not the players. So we'll see what happens with it. But I'm not too hopeful. I think it can get done, but I'm not counting on it.
The biggest thing and this is, first off, I want to say, as we're talking about this, all I can think about is the South Park episode with the student athletes and Cartman.
That's it. That is it. Yes.
I'm not going to expand on that reference if you know what I'm talking about. If you know.
Yes.
But one of the biggest problems with consulting student athletes is you're only there for 3 to 5 years. So you don't have a leader like if you did this with the NFL. Let's say today, for the past 30 years, NFL players were not getting paid for some reason. You would have someone like Aaron Rodgers, someone that's an older person that's been in the league for a long time, or any kind of senior veteran that'd be able to go to the table and represent these players in the Players Association as they do now. You don't get that in college football because they're only there for at most apparently 8 years now, which is still not a long time, and they're not always intermingling. There's 138 schools or however many now. And if you go down to the FCS, it keeps growing. So you don't have a group that you can look to of senior veterans, leaders, stuff like that. Like, yes, you have quarterbacks that are Heisman candidates and stuff like that, but they're in and out of the revolving door too. So when you go to consult the players, there's not many people to consult, which is why it comes down to the athletic directors and the coaches and people that are always there. And I think it's incumbent upon them to talk to their players and get their information and then feed it up. I know that's not the most transparent model or maybe the most efficient, but I think for right now, that's kind of what we have.
The lack of a single body has been the excuse that everybody's leaned into. Not saying you're doing that. You're explaining it just in case somebody doesn't know where you're coming from. But I don't buy the argument that you don't have just because they're only 3 or 4 or 5 years with the school doesn't mean that they're not seeing what's going on around them, and they should have a voice. There should be a way to do it. Is it going to be easy? Absolutely not. If it was easy, maybe they would have done it 30 years ago. But that doesn't mean it's not worth the try. It's not worth, because you think about it, these players now have agents. These players now have lawyers, and they're smarter than they've ever been. The athletes that are playing college sports now are smarter at all of this than anybody in the time in the past, and I think they're more informed in that way. So again, if we take 2 years to build it right, in that 2 years, I think you come up with a representative model. Maybe every school gets a rep. Maybe every conference gets a rep for their schools, and they go in and it's like having a committee or something. There's got to be a way that we can do this, and there's enough legal experts that know what they're talking about that have offered to do stuff for free for them just so that they have their voice at the table. I think that is the laziest excuse that the world has been trying to say why they're just not willing to put in the time because everything has to be done right now. So I think what you're describing there is real. That's absolutely true. But I think we could take the time to actually create something that would work.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. I think like what you said, maybe take 2 people from each conference, put them in a
Sure,
room.
something
One,
like
one if you're
that, yeah.
independent, but equal representation across all of them. Group of 5 and Power 4, and UConn gets 1 guy too.
Sure.
But if you go to the model where you have to be independent for 5 years before you join a conference, that's not going to happen. That I know that's never going to happen. Then you would
These
have
ideas came out of whole cloth too.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
does the idea you have to go independent for 5 years come from? Where that came from is
I
these
get the-
threats from the Big Ten and the SEC that they're trying to slow down this next explosion of a breakaway, which again, there's not enough money to support adding 6 schools to the Big Ten.
No. Also, but I mean, understand if you go back and you look at how the Pac-12 exploded, if you had that you have to go independent for 5 years before you join another conference, Pac-12 would still be in perfect shape because USC and UCLA would not have done that. Well, maybe USC would have eventually, but they wouldn't have done it overnight like they did. So I understand the sentiment behind it. I don't know if it's the best way. I think capping how many people you can have at a conference is probably the best way to do it. I know that doesn't pose well for Notre Dame if we ever had to join a conference for whatever reason. But I told Dylan on a previous podcast, if that ever happened, let's say the Big Ten was full and Notre Dame had to join a conference and they wanted to join the Big Ten, it would be chef's kiss if they kicked out Michigan or USC to let Notre Dame in, which would be fantastic. But there would be conferences kicking teams out at that point to bring in higher revenue teams, which wouldn't be fair to those smaller guys either. So there's a lot of things to consider when we're talking about this way down the road that we're not thinking of at the time. But like I said, one step at a time. The one thing I do think that, to your point, if you had 2 people from each conference, 1 from independence, and then you had, so that way you don't have 140 people talking that are kids in a classroom. I don't know if you've ever been, when I took my group hall sessions and there was 140 people in there, all I was doing was staring at the hot girls. No one was ever getting anything done.
Right.
So it would be much the same. Everyone would just be getting pretty much nothing done because there's too many people talking at once. If you have something smaller, 20 to 50 people, I think that'd be doable.
You know, the funny thing is, Tim, the way the current Senate bill is written is actually really good for Notre Dame because they arbitrarily set the number at 19 teams, which means the Big Ten is just not going to expand because they're never going to waste an opportunity to have Notre Dame come in. And it also keeps the ACC together. So the way it's currently written is great for us. I just don't think it's going to happen. And why these rules are so stupid, I think I'll take a non-partisan shot here, but it's because the senators that put them together, Cantwell and Ted Cruz, are not necessarily known. One Democrat, one Republican. I don't think either of them are really known for being of the highest intellect and of quality when it comes to politicians. So that's probably why, because this is a bipartisan effort. It is Democrats and Republicans in the Senate that are for and against it. There's bipartisan support and bipartisan opposition, and it's the same thing in the House. Tend to be, like Nate said, the Democrats tend to be a little more skeptical of it, just in general, of like their more pro-union, pro-labor mindset, which is altruistic. I think it's good to take care of the kids. It also gets in the way a little bit of trying to get governance done, which seems to be the biggest issue. But how we do it is, I don't know. Notre Dame's in general support of this because we talked about this too, Nate. Notre Dame really doesn't want the students to become employees just because they view the student-athlete experience as something that means something very special at Notre Dame. So like I get it for those particular reasons. Notre Dame will adjust. I don't think there's any major issue, I think, on Notre Dame's end. Like if this bill ends up blowing up, I don't think nobody's gonna hit the panic button at Notre Dame. So we're probably fine, but you'd like to get something sorted out to figure out what the layout is going to be, and you don't want the silos, which is, let's say the SEC just says, well, to hell with all of you. We're going to start our own league, our own national championship. We're only going to play our own teams. That's going to become a problem for Notre Dame if that happens. But that's, kicking the can down the road a little bit. We don't have to worry about that too much right now. But Nate, I'm wondering what you think about Notre Dame's long-term independence. You always ask me that when I'm on the show, so I'll ask you for our listeners. Do you think Notre Dame's going to stay independent, or do you think there's going to be a time when we're going to have to pick a side?
The only way, and you can cut this out and run it back at me, there's 50 other interviews that I've done that say the exact same thing, but the only way Notre Dame joins a conference is if their access to the playoff is restricted. They force people to be in conferences, essentially. That is the only way they leave independence. I don't think you guys, money's great. If Notre Dame needs money, they can find it. So I'm not even thinking that the broadcast. I think NBC is going to stay around for you guys, and I think everybody's going to want Notre Dame on the air like you are with the ACC. There is no doubt in my mind that the need for Notre Dame to be great and relative is huge, but I do not ever see you guys joining the conference until the CFP negotiates some sort of a statement that says you have to be in a conference. And if we get to that point where something like that happens, then I think we have bigger problems in college football. If you're going out of your way to tell somebody where they have to go and where they have to live just by trying to exclude them. I think it's a bunch of garbage, and Big Ten people can dream all they want, but Notre Dame's not going anywhere, in my opinion. You guys are going to be set for decades to come, and you're just going to have to balance out what's the trade-off you may have to give to stay independent. Maybe you make an extra $6 million less. Maybe there's money that you're leaving on the table, but it's not a national championship of money. It's a national championship of football. Media dollars are great, but you guys really aren't hurting for money. So I just think it frustrates me that people keep talking about it as an idea, because you know why they think about it as an idea? Because it makes them feel strong. A bunch of Big Ten people, they say, well, if Notre Dame goes anywhere, they're coming to us. And that by themselves, then they're propelling themselves up at the same time. Purdue would love to play you guys every year, right? I mean, wouldn't Illinois
not the
and
players,
Indiana
but
want
the
to play?
school.
You get my point, though, right? It makes you feel good if what you're talking about is also good. So I think you guys are going to be set for a long, long time.
That's music to our ears, I think, as a fan base, because obviously it's something that matters a lot. Anytime I see polling, or we do polling on it on Twitter, it's overwhelming support to stay independent. There's something unique about it, something that's very Notre Dame about it. But you're right, too. There seems to be a bit of a sense of entitlement to Notre Dame from a lot of Big Ten people in the realignment circle. It's like, you've always belonged to us. We're going to get you eventually. Bend the knee, as one of your co-hosts like to say. And it's sort of an attitude like that I think Notre Dame, that repulses us. It's more about putting Notre Dame down or taking something away from Notre Dame than it is, hey, we want to have Notre Dame in our conference. It's more, shut up and join us already, which, it's not, and we appreciate, but it's also a thing, Nate, that not a lot of Notre Dame people think about that often. We're discussed way more in realignment than we discuss realignment ourselves.
Yes.
We don't have these conversations. That's kind of something unique right now, because you go to any other fan base in college football at the moment, you go to Miami, they're talking, can we get into the Big Ten? You talk at Florida State, they're like, can we get out of the ACC? Which conference would we like to go to? Oregon and Washington, that's all they talked about for a year, was how do we get into the Big Ten? So all these schools are trying to figure out their alignment plans. Like, look, your rival, Utah, will not shut up about the Big Ten. It's all they're fascinated about. And it's like, we're the one fan base that doesn't seem to really have those conversations. We don't really care what's going on. I mean, I do. Not everybody does.
We have one common argument all the time. That's we got to get out of this ACC deal. We have to play them 5 times a year, because you guys talk about soft schedules. I actually did the math on this. Our strength of schedule dropped on average from when they started keeping track in 98 to 2014 when we put one foot in with the ACC. It dropped 15 spots or more on average, just because we're playing ACC teams every year. So that's our one complaint, is why are we still in this with the ACC play? And that's part of another reason why you want to be independent. I wanted to ask you this, Nate, because you were talking about Notre Dame's never hurting for money. And I wanted to say, speaking of hurting for money, you are a BYU fan. You are wearing a BYU jersey, but I see it's missing the monster patch across it. Is that allowed? And that's another reason why conferences are almost like an overreach of government, because they can enforce all these rules. They can say, now you got to wear a patch in your jersey. Now you have to do this. You have to put our logo on the field. I'm fine with that. But all these things that they're making teams do all the time, and yes, teams are getting rewarded and money back from these things. But, at what point is it just like, are you just basically a whore for money and you lose all all dignity for yourself?
The naming thing I've never been hung up about. I have a bunch of friends that really lean into the naming stuff and what should be named and what shouldn't be named. I don't, Big 12 presented by Monster Energy sounds better to me than Monster Energy presents the Big 12. So from that standpoint, I don't know how it's going to be implemented. It's really the first of its kind. The ACC has decided not to do one at all. They're going to just whatever I guess you guys do whatever you want to do. No, Notre Dame, talking ACC people. I'm not sure how they're going to apply that, but I don't care about the naming thing. It's kind of kitschy, and it may be annoying. The Big 12, I saw some pictures of logos where it was instead of big, what was it? Instead of big and then the Roman numerals, they put in like an M for the Monster Energy, and this special. I don't know. I don't care about it so much. If you get money for it, great. But I think what the larger question is what is your value, right? I mean, it had never been done before, so the Big 12 went first, and how big of a deal was this? Is this all that we could possibly get? $1.2 million or something like that?
Yeah, it was $20 million for the conference, I think.
Yeah, for the entire conference. So that's the only question I have is this the best we could do? Or is there something else going on in the background that we don't know as fans that makes the return on investment much higher? So, yeah, I don't care about the logo so much. If they can make it look cool, I'd be happy about that.
If they could make it, I was going to say maybe they make Monster Gatorade and that now you don't have to pay for Gatorade anymore.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's something going around online. There's the Ohio State was having their photo shoot, and there seems to be a new patch on top of the conference patch, which just looks silly at this point. You just got too many patches on the jersey.
Yeah.
But it looks like some kind of bank is partnering with Ohio State. I wonder if that's in part to beat the Big Ten to it, because if you're Ohio State, you can pull a better sponsor than probably the conference as a whole would be willing to give on average.
Yes,
so absolutely. I wonder if Ohio State was like, to hell with, we're not waiting for what the Big 12 did. We're just going to go get a sponsor ourselves and let the conference figure out kind of what comes after. Because it's something that I would not like is like, not to pick on Monster, but the school should have a say if Monster Energy drink is on my jersey. The conference just dictating that. It's kind of jarring from a Notre Dame perspective because that would never happen here. It's like,
to your
the
point,
school very much controls everything like that.
To your point, can you imagine if BYU had to put like a Budweiser logo on their jersey and
that
they don't
happen.
drink?
Yeah, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
No, that wouldn't happen.
But like that's the danger of a conference, right? I mean, I'm sure they'd be respectful enough to have that conversation with BYU, but theoretically, that's what always kind of bothers me with conferences is like any kind of decision, whether it's something like that or COVID, right? Look at how many conferences didn't want to play football during COVID. And it was Notre Dame joining the ACC that brought the ACC to the table to play football. They were not going to. And then the Big Ten came about a little bit later. So just like things like that, when people talk about independence, and they talk about how Notre Dame doesn't really, like some people call it quasi-independence because we don't play a full independent schedule, but that misses the point of what independence is, which is autonomy. It's decision-making. It's if I'm putting a sponsor on my jersey, it is me deciding it. If we're going to be doing something about participation during the COVID pandemic, that should be at an institutional level, not at a conference level. And I think that's kind of what Notre Dame values is we don't, maybe it's history of being kind of, I don't want to say screwed over, but being excluded by certain institutions that maybe we don't trust others. We got like a very deep-rooted mistrust in the decision making of conferences. But yeah, that's just kind of the Notre Dame perspective on it is, yeah, I wouldn't want anyone telling me what I can and can't wear. That might be frivolous to you, Nate, but for us, we're a weirdly traditional program like that, and I think Ohio State was just jumping the gun just to kind of tie it back to what we were at.
Yeah, I mean, and sorry, Tim, I just wanted to answer that really quick. There's never, ever, ever will there be gambling, no FanDuel, no mixed drink or Budweiser. None of that stuff would ever. You're not going to see casino the tags on BYU gear. So I mean, if it came to that point, BYU would just leave the conference. They'd absolutely. Well, we've done stupid, crazy stuff on our own before that people looked at and really jaundiced and thought, "Wow, you guys are this weird school." But at the end of the day, it's turned out pretty well for where we are
Yeah.
now. So
I liked it when you guys were independent. It was fun to just look at you as, not as the other religious school that was also independent.
right, yes, for
um,
sure.
Yeah. And when I was actually at that, when BYU played Notre Dame in Vegas, I was there that day.
Oh,
And leading
man.
up, speaking of casinos, leading up to that day, everything in that town was Notre Dame gear. No BYU fan in sight. Come game day, y'all came over the mountains in your horse and buggies and just took over the city. And I was
Yeah,
like,
we
where did all
show
these people
out,
come
don't we?
from? And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. They don't gamble, so why would they come here early?
No, that's right. What they were doing at the time is they were doing church work during the day when you were walking the strip, and then that evening, I can't remember what time the game was. Was that a day game? I can't remember, but
Yes, it
yes.
started during maybe like a 7:00 Eastern, because when we got out, it was blacked out at night, and I was blacked out walking out of there. So whatever that was.
Okay, well, one thing that BYU brings attention, they bring viewers, bring money.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a great segue into a new section, which is this new Notre Dame BYU relationship.
I love it.
Since we've last been on, Notre Dame and BYU have scheduled a home and home. We've talked a little bit about that, but there is reports that Notre Dame and BYU are looking to maybe expand this relationship outside of football and even extend the 2-game series into something more like maybe what Notre Dame and Clemson did, which was an 11-game series that may or may not happen in full,
Right.
but at least trying to get ahead of the curve there. What are your thoughts on kind of that relationship, being a possible rival of Notre Dame's and having this kind of long-term series?
For one thing, I think the affinity is natural. I always have felt that way. I felt like BYU and Notre Dame have the same values. They enforce the same type of rules. There's a few extras BYU do, but the affinity is natural, as Tim said just a minute ago. And we are at a point where schools need certitude. And finding somebody that is an easy fit, just roll them in, they'll show up all the time, and it'll always draw eyeballs for a competition. I think the fit with BYU and Notre Dame is amazing. I think the timing could not be better. And I think probably the biggest deal that came out of it is that you're coming to Provo first, right? And Notre Dame does deals with schools, but it's like 2 for 1 or 3 for 1, and rarely will you guys leave South Bend. Maybe you'll go to a third party destination. But the fact that you guys, it was like I'll tell you how I felt. I felt like we've finally been seen. We've finally been recognized. BYU has finally gotten, the easiest way to put it is the tap on the shoulder from Notre Dame says, "You're with us. We got you," and that has made so many BYU fans feel finally seen from a real world perspective. And Brian Santiago's the AD, and Bavakwa's the AD at Notre Dame. They like each other. They're friends. They talk often, evidently. So I think basketball games, women's volleyball, all these type of activities that we could do outside of football is just incredible. And I see where, because Notre Dame's trying to freshen up their schedule. You've already said it a few times here. BYU is going to bring that to you every year. We're not going away until we are cut out again, which could happen. I mean, anything could change. But until that happens, BYU is going to be 25 or higher in football probably for the foreseeable future, because the investment that they put in to facilities, to the coaching staff, and unless that blows up, BYU is always going to be there and be able to bring up your strength of schedule, which is really what we're talking about at the end of the day.
Which is fantastic that it went up by dropping USC, and they dropped us. So I'll make sure to make that clear.
That was so stupid. That was so stupid.
And they're going to regret it very quickly, I'm sure. But that was the best thing that came out of this, was our strength of schedule went up, because every year it feels like for the last decade, USC has just been such a letdown.
Yep.
Even when they beat us, it's like, cool, you beat us, but you're still like 8-4. Like, why can't you be good and not just, occasionally pay off the refs to beat us good? And so in my thinking that this could become a nice rivalry, and the fact that we're both religious institutions and you hate Utah, and we hate Boston College, so you have your holy war with Utah, we have our holy war with Boston College, let's cancel that. This will be the new holy war, and just make them mad.
I love it. Anything I can do to make Utah fail, I'm all here for it.
I think another thing too is what's promising about BYU is your head coach isn't going anywhere anytime soon. That's a man committed to the institution, and that's good, because I want to know if I'm signing up long term to date BYU, I want to know BYU is going to be, good in football, and I'm very confident that's going to be the case. You brought something up about Notre Dame scheduling, and Notre Dame seems to have like two types of teams. There's the teams where we'll do neutral site games with, like we have with you for the last 2 decades. Really, was like we'll play the Shamrock Series game. We do that with like Arizona State. We only ever play them in those kinds of contexts. And then there's the more Power 2 schools where we'll do a home and home. So we have home and homes lined up with Texas, with Auburn, with Florida, with Alabama, Michigan coming up, Indiana. And to your point, I think that kind of the tap on the shoulder is a bit of recognition of like, you're one of the big boys now, because we're going to do a home and home with you. It's not just a one-off neutral site game. It's going to be something more meaningful and deeper. And I know you guys have wanted us in Provo for a while. It's been, I think, since 2004. So it'll be
like that. Yeah,
it'll be a great environment. And Tim, you're going to that game, right?
Yes, that is correct. So I'm not sure if you'll be there, Nathan. If you are,
I can't afford tickets. I've been trying to convince somebody to just give me one, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Maybe between now and then you can find someone that going out of town, so they're not going to be there for the game. I got mine through.
On every show in October, or in September, I will be. By the way, I want to go to the BYU game. If you can't go, give me your ticket.
If I can't go, yes, you can have my tickets. I got mine through Notre Dame.
Okay, all right.
So don't crash my plane or anything like that for me, please.
No, I wouldn't. Yeah.
But my best friend lives in Salt Lake, so me and him are going to that game.
Cool.
And the first question that I've had that he still has not been able to provide an answer is, how are we going to tailgate and drink before the game? I know of one tailgate at BYU that has alcohol, because I saw it on like a Barstool reveal where they spent 30 minutes looking for a tailgate that was people were drinking at a BYU game. And so
there are members, non-members of the church that are fans of BYU football.
Yes.
In fact, there's a lot more than you might assume. Yeah. And I think BYU fans sometimes forget about them, but they are the hardest fans in the world. I mean, these guys will rip your throat. They tear your head off and defend what has been a 55-year run now for BYU since Lavelle Edwards' first year in 1972, and I think that's a pretty good legacy. You have non-members of the church, people that have no problem doing whatever they want to do, but are still fans, and I absolutely love that.
That's what makes college football great.
It does,
yeah. And we've chatted about that, Nate, too, recognizing those fans, because as a Notre Dame fan, you hear this a lot, too. Just everybody assumes you're Catholic. Right. And it's like Notre Dame's got a whole bunch of fans that are of different religions or no religion at all. It's a very diverse group, and I know BYU is like that. I don't know to what extent it is, but I know there's people out there who just like BYU. And how can you not? I think there were... I'm going to be glazing you here, but I think it's such a great program. I think the way they run things is great, and I think like the destination is great. The stadium is great. The history is cool. 84. What a big year in college football. So I think BYU and Notre Dame have real potential here. I'm curious to see, because like I would have liked USC and BYU, you know, like
Sure, of
Yes.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so you got to find ways, I think, if you're Notre Dame, to kind of get more of these games on the schedule. But that's why BYU, I think, is a no-brainer, because you're one of the schools that aren't going to look at, okay, yeah, we're playing 9 Big 10, Big 12 games this year. I'm too afraid to play Notre Dame. That's never an issue with BYU. BYU just
Yeah.
wants to play Notre Dame, which is appreciated, because, as we've learned, not everybody necessarily feels that way. And you got to kind of find the schools that are comfortable playing you regardless of what their schedule looks like.
My favorite BYU thing yet you guys ever did was go to Coastal Carolina and play them the week of
Yeah.
during that COVID times. That nothing says BYU like we will literally play anyone anywhere more than that. And you guys are very true to that slogan, which makes you
Lavelle-
guys that much better.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
You're good. I'm
I
done.
was just going to say Lavelle was a anywhere, anytime guy. And that has carried through the program since he's now passed on. But yeah, that you have to do stuff like that though when you're a little off kilter, right? And I fully admit BYU's different. There's a lot of different things about it. The honor code is a real deal. You guys have seen that. Jake Retzlaff. You know, is there a chance we go to the playoff last year with Jake Retzlaff? I personally still don't think we would have. He was a middling quarterback in my opinion, but it's stuff like that you're willing to put yourself out and say we're going to sacrifice our entire season for what we know is right, and at the same time, these kids, everybody makes mistakes. Right? So you do not treat these kids like they're commodities. You treat them like human beings. You do the best you can under the circumstances, and then you move along. But the Brendan Sorsby thing, I love Texas Tech, right?
I knew that's
I
where we were
really have
going.
always liked Texas Tech. But I think they made 2 major mistakes in the whole thing. First one is do a simple background check maybe. Before you give somebody $5 million to come play for 1 season at your school, maybe do a $200, $250 maybe even for the personal phone calls, background check, and that stuff would have popped up immediately. They would have been able to see the legal report that came from the FBI, all these other things they could have discovered. So that was the first mistake, very stupid one, and they never should have done it. Then the second one was doubling and tripling and then tripling down again on the same bad hand that
was
never had a
hilarious.
chance to win.
It was so funny watching that in real time. Like, these are supposed to be smart people that are running this. It's a major institution in a big state where I'm like, how are you misplaying this hand so bad? Which I think we can get more into in a second. I just want to touch on one more thing for our Notre Dame listeners about BYU. That so I've been to Salt Lake City before, and I wasn't at BYU's campus, but I did walk around Salt Lake City. I saw the Church of Latter-day Saints. I walked around the campus, that part of Salt Lake City, and everything around it. It's not Notre Dame, but it's its own different type of like feel that you kind of get at Notre Dame. I don't know if you've ever been to Notre Dame, but it's when you're there on campus, it's just a feeling you can't describe. It's almost the same thing when I was walking around Salt Lake City in the Mormon parts of the city. It was spiritual in a way, and it was very neat to see and experience that. So if you are going there, I know some listeners are. Make sure you take that in as well.
Yeah, it's Temple Square is what it's called.
Yes, that one.
And that all just got revamped. They had to earthquake-proof some buildings, including the temple, the biggest one. They had to make sure those, because we're prone to some earthquakes. So they put that in, and I would recommend you don't have to be a fan of church, and you certainly don't have to be a fan of a religious institution to go and just walk through, and you'll have this calming. It'll slow everything down in your brain. If you're frustrated, you get out of you just get off a plane ride and you're a little tense and you want to wind down. Temple Square is a wonderful place to visit. You just go walk around. It's not overt where they're trying to tell everybody convert right now. They don't do that down there. And so, but so you've never been to Provo then?
No, I have not.
Okay. Where have you been to the University of Washington? You sound like you've been to a few games.
I have not been to University of Washington. I saw the Utah Stadium just because we were driving by it. But
yeah, they're on a hill.
I saw your giant BYU logo on the side of the mountain.
Yeah,
I didn't see that.
It is, and it is one of the most. The reason I said University of Washington is because their football stadium and the surrounding right off Lake Washington is absolutely beautiful. But this backdrop I would put up against it. You get in, and if you're facing, I don't know where your tickets are, but if you could face west, right? Yeah. If you can face west and see the mountains in the background, it's almost as good as Touchdown Jesus, and it feels like a cathedral a little bit.
I can tell you where my seats are, and they're going to be the worst place you can sit because they're the away team's tickets. So probably not nice.
You guys will be up in the corner then. I know you're
unless you guys have a come to Jesus moment that day, and you're like, hey, let's give Tim Flynn the best seats that he could possibly have.
Well, I wouldn't be able to do that. I got you.
It's funny. You're talking about the quarterback that violated the honor code, so BYU suspended him for the year. How many schools in college football would suspend their starting quarterback for a year for breaking a university policy?
Not Texas Tech.
Not many. And in fact, if you're a Notre Dame fan, you might recall one example when our redshirt freshman quarterback coming off a national championship game, Everett Golson, got caught cheating on an exam and was suspended for the whole year.
Oh, wow.
And that was coming off a national championship game. So it just reminded me that there is a lot in common Notre Dame and BYU share, even if it's not the exact same religion. A lot of these values are kind of transferable and identifiable in both schools, which is, again, just another reason why I like BYU. Just they play who they are. They're not going to do what Michigan did. They're not going to do what a lot of other schools like Texas Tech has done. And I feel for Texas Tech, but at the same time, you can't allow. Pete Rose is not in the Hall of Fame because of it.
Not yet.
We are a little too soft, I think, on the sports gambling. It's a real problem, but we need to have actual measures in place that this doesn't happen. And to be fair, I think they should let Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. It's just to give an example that athletes should know better. There's very famous cases of this, and Texas Tech, I don't know what they're doing.
Well, at the end of the day, Texas Tech is a symptom. There are other schools that would have done the exact same thing.
Oh, for sure.
We don't have to call out every one of them, but the idea that Texas Tech did this, the idea that Texas Tech did this in a vacuum is simply not true. It's a permissive system. The governance, as we talked about a little while ago with the Protect College Sports Act, the governance is not put in place to enforce rules like that, and that's one of the biggest things that has to be fixed for sure.
Yeah, I think also a big thing to talk about is just the fact that there's two schools before that knew there were issues that Sorsby was at, and no one ever really did anything about it till he came to Texas Tech and everything blew up with the FBI investigation. Cincinnati has yet to be really reprimanded for this, and there was also so much going on in that Sorsby thing. That we could talk about, from the state judge talking about putting the one thing that he did that was massive that no one really talked about was the court district judge in Texas did not say that the NCAA could not suspend him. They said they couldn't enforce it yet until they get so he was never eligible in the eyes of the NCAA. He was never once eligible. Every Texas Tech fan in the world will say that he was because they're dumb. But he was never eligible. Now, what the thing that the NCAA typically does in those situations is they will fight it tooth and nail, and then once they win, they will retroactively strip away all those wins. They will say do whatever they can to punish the team retroactively. The other thing the judge said is you can't do that. You can't do that with Texas Tech, and you can't do it with any team that plays Texas Tech. So if BYU decided to play Texas Tech, even though everyone was saying you can't because they're cheating, BYU couldn't be punished for that because the judge said that they couldn't. So that was a precedent that was crazy that was set right there, and that is going to stick around throughout the rest of college football until some sort of act is passed by Congress to make things not so crazy. And I am sure that now that you've seen one state do it, you'll see it again. You'll see it with anyone else that want that. I'm going to go out on a limb and just say like some SEC team, because they are literally, the judges are literally doing everything they can in those areas to help their team all the time. So might be LSU, it might be Ole Miss, it might be Mississippi State. It'll be some team. This is not the last time you're going to see something like this. Like you said, it's not a vacuum. This was just one symptom, and there are plenty more to come.
Yeah, gambling is it's a cancer. It's a cancer. Online mobile gambling, gambling from your cell phone. It's just too easy. It's just too easy. Now I don't judge anybody for any activities that they do, good or bad. But that doesn't mean I have to accept your choice, right? I have to accept you as a person, but I don't have to own your choices. You own your own choices. And that's what Texas Tech should have done. I mean, if they would have just acted like any normal parent that's raising children, it's the exact same model. It's the kids make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. You deal with the consequences, and then you hold people accountable. That's what the very first report that came out about Sorsby, I put a post on X out that basically, to summarize it, is you have to hold them accountable, and you have to recognize that you have a problem, and you also need to work together on a solution, right? Everybody's here. We're all trying to get to the same place. You're not trying to dead and bury. But Brendan Sorsby's not a bad human being. There's nothing in that part of it that's wrong. But as you say, there's probably only one absolute in college sport, well, all sports, and that is cheating is universally and rightfully condemned.
I would not say cheating. I would say gambling on your own team is universally condemned, because apparently you can cheat and still win a national championship, and the NCAA will be totally fine with it.
Yeah, I'm just talking about gambling on your sport, but yeah. I get what you're saying.
One thing, Nate, you got to understand with us Notre Dame fans is we will take any opportunity to take a shot at Michigan anytime. Okay. If there's an opportunity in there, we'll squeeze it.
Yeah, you're not the only ones. You're not the only ones.
Well, that's
to your point.
Funny, yeah.
Yeah, to your point, the point of the entire education system, from pre-K to your master's degree, is to better the person that's coming through your system, whether it be intellectually, whether it be disciplinary. The end goal is to make them a better person when they leave than they were when they came in. And student athletes, Notre Dame does a great job of that. Students in general, like when I did stupid stuff in college, which there was plenty, when I got caught, I got in trouble. And then I knew not to do it again, and at least not get caught if I did it again. So I was better at getting away with it. So the way
kids, don't listen to Tim if you're listening to this. Ignore him.
But the whole point is, I mean, Knute Rockne really said it best. Like, let's give these kids an actual experience, not just a football game. Let's take these kids to New York City to play Army. Let's take them to South Carolina or California to play USC. Let's give them these experiences that are going to make them better, more worldly. Let's enforce our disciplinary codes. Let's not wipe this off because we need to win this football game this upcoming season with our quarterback or whoever it might be. It's important to make sure that these kids are better when they leave, not worse.
That's absolutely true. I was just going to say the worst part of the whole thing was when the 5 administrators, the coach, was it the president of the university, whatever, came out and did that 20-minute video.
Table. Oh my God.
And what was it? 3 days later, the whole thing was over. I mean, that ranks up there with New Coke as one of the stupid ideas ever thrown through an organization. And Texas Tech, they had been building something for they've been doing it for a few years, but they don't have a great history to draw upon in the past. So they don't really have that bank of goodwill out there saying, oh, okay, you're another school that you go out and win. And, kind of like what Indiana did. They sort of build something. The money doesn't bother me. It's never bothered me. But you go out and you make yourself the villain on your own, right? The school did this. They did this to themselves. And they're projecting out saying that we're wrong for even castigating it or being critical or making fun is total gaslighting to the rest of college football. It doesn't. We are not stupid enough to think that this school is just going to continue to do everything they can to win football games, but they're not willing, really, to pay the price, which is time. It takes time to do things like this. So.
And the one thing that I thought was the worst thing that Texas Tech did was they were actually going to put Brendan Sorsby out there on the field, and I don't know if anyone's ever been on Twitter in the college football world, but our fans as a universal understanding are nothing but viscerally mean to other fan bases when they feel like they deserve it. There's no way that Brendan Sorsby, it would have been good for his mental health for him to be going to an away game and having fans say the worst things to him that they could possibly think of on a weekly basis. And I'll talk online. I mean, just that month that he was fighting this thing, if he opened his phone at all, he was probably going to get hurt emotionally just reading some of the things that are being said.
I feel bad for the fans. I have some of the very first viewers of College Football Mafia, our YouTube, were Texas Tech fans. Super friendly, way smart. Some of the most intelligent fans that I've been around doing this for almost 4 years. And they all jumped on board behind their administration. They got behind Brendan Sorsby. They got behind the coach. And they did this all along, not really knowing the price they would pay down the road. We're not talking about general hate, like you mentioned Michigan, or you might say Miami, or I might say Utah. We're not talking about a competitive hate, right? We're talking about you are trying to break the system. Like if this had gone through, if he'd played football this year, it would have consumed the year. And at the end, everybody knows that the year would have been written off.
What if he, I always like do what ifs. What if Brendan Sorsby did play and he had like a Heisman-like season? And like how much worse that would have been? I don't think he wins
the Heisman though.
No, there's no way people vote for him. But like if he looks like he was good, and then obviously no one would put him on their ballot at all, except for maybe one or two people. But that's how bad it would have looked for the sport in general.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's an interesting case because it's going to happen more and more as the proliferation of sports gambling makes its way across the country and the world. We were first on that in Canada to nationalize it legally, or to make it national. And we haven't had any high profile cases like in hockey yet, but the detriments of it have been felt. I think there's a widespread addiction issue right now in both countries of people in sports gambling, and you're just going to see that, I think, eventually leak its way into the actual sports, into the games themselves. I mean, I don't know what Sorsby was thinking, but betting on your own team is insane. I don't know who thought that was ethically. I mean, he clearly did, but, and like you said, he's not a bad person. He made a bad decision.
But his argument was he wasn't playing that game.
I get that, but you still have material information that the market doesn't, right?
Yeah,
it's like insider trading. It's the same thing.
Also, hey, never mind he was doing it when he was 18 years old. Never mind he was doing it when he was 19 years old. Never mind the fact that he was using his sister's cousin's boyfriend's cell phone to make the bet. Like, the extent that he went to continue to gamble and not get caught.
He did have an addiction, for sure.
He absolutely had an addiction. And there's no way he walked in and out of that addiction house and he walked on to the practice field, started throwing footballs again, and I'm cured. Right? That's not how addictions work.
All it took was someone to say, I bet you $20 you can't hit that field goal post of the football right now. He's back.
Well,
like it would
and
not
he's
have
a
been that hard.
quarterback. He
Yeah.
touches the ball every play. So how can we be sure that overpassed what wasn't on purpose? How can
Right.
we be sure that fumble wasn't on purpose? How can we be sure? You can't.
It would have been
And
real
that's-
life Shane Falco.
Yeah, it would have been really bad. Really would be. But we don't have to worry about it now. It's done. So
Yeah. Well, then
Yeah.
you also have to, there's also another argument for not wanting gambling, and that's what a lot of the academic programs are saying is, let's say you put $500 on a player to score a touchdown, and they don't that game because they had a terrible game, then
Right.
they get hate by the person who lost that $500. Like that's a niche scenario. I think it happens.
Sure.
It does happen, not as much as everyone makes it out to be, and that is a problem. If you want to stop something, start there. Say, hey, if you make a stupid decision gambling, that's harassment. If you're going after someone for speculating on what they could have done and being incorrect, like people do that every day in sports. They just don't put money on it. And when they're wrong, they don't go after that person to try and break them. They just say, "Oh, well, I was wrong. You had a bad game." They write them like a book. These other people, on the other hand, that have problems, they make it a bigger problem for everyone around them, and that's something that we do need to remove from the game the best we can. I know Navy football actually blocked me for a day.
Wow.
Because
Wow.
they put out a tweet that said, if you do that where you bet on our player and you talk about it, we're going to block you. Like, we're not going to stand for it. And I said,
Wow.
don't worry, I live in New York. I can't bet on teams in New York like Army. Otherwise, I would have lost a lot of money on you because you kids never seem to beat them.
Okay.
And they
All
blocked me for that. I thought that was just funny. But they
Wow.
unblocked me once the other things kind of came through. But
That's
I
funny.
like the fact that programs are starting to be more standing up for their players in that aspect. I think it needs to happen more.
Yeah, and also like addiction is a real thing. You know, Sorsby's not being punished for that. He shouldn't be judged because of it. Because
Nope.
you know, many of us have addictions,
Needs to be
and
helped.
it can be a really tough beast to overcome.
Yeah.
So it's not judgment there. It's the specific gambling on your team while you're there. You can't do that. We need stronger rules, but that's the issue. It goes back to governance. We can't get any kind of governance going on. I mean, they seem to allow the conference to. I think if the Big 12 wants to impose certain rules on Sorsby, they might be able to, but I know Texas Tech had threatened to.
Well, remember, that's what it was, right? They
Yeah.
got the attorney general. This is how stupid the story got. At the very end, they had the state attorney general for Texas saying he's going to sue the Big 12 for trying to enforce this rule. And then Kansas State and Iowa State stood up and said, no, fine, we'll fight you. Brett Yormark said, we'll fight you. And it was just getting uglier and uglier and uglier by the minute. And then, then it popped. So, yeah.
So what do you
Little-
think?
little
We'll
off
do that
topic.
for a while.
Little off topic, Nate, but BYU aside, unless you think they're the answer, who do you think is going to win the national championship this year? I feel like this is one of the more open seasons we've had in a long time.
I think, and that's what's been great about the NIL era, right? You're not stacking 3 deep 5 stars on your Alabama or your Georgia or your Michigan or Ohio State. You might be doing 2 deep 5 stars, but the talent is now spread out enough that college football's never been more competitive. And in my opinion, I think this year is going to be the most competitive season maybe we've ever seen, because you have how many schools last year went 10-2 or 11-1? There was a few schools,
A lot.
and 9-3 schools were screaming that they also should be in the playoff. So I think we need to expand the playoff. But you asked me a question: who wins this year? It's hard. It's hard not to pick Ohio State. Their defense is just, and they're monsters. Notre Dame is lined up. Never mind that you're going to lose in Provo, but you can still get to the playoff. I think Notre Dame absolutely could do it. Michigan, they're going to win 9 games this year, so it's not them. Georgia and Alabama, these are the quietest off seasons I've seen for Georgia and Alabama, maybe in over a decade.
That's
We haven't
probably
heard
good for
anything
Georgia,
about
at
them.
least.
Well, unless their guys just breaking, car wrecks and speeding. At the end of the day, I think that you can't throw them out. If I had to put money on somebody, I would probably pick Ohio State. Oregon is another one that is just they retool. Miami, heaven's sakes, Miami. So what I'm listing like 6, 7, 8 schools, and I think that goes another 7 or 8 schools that have a chance.
Well, you
So
haven't listed the defending champions. Indiana might have a say in this again. Indiana's been they've been
maybe
kicking around. I
who's
don't
their
think they're as
quarterback?
favored.
Who's their
That's
quarterback?
it. That's it. But Signetti is a guy I trust. I mean, I know that might get me in trouble with some Notre Dame fans, but I think Signetti is the real deal. Ohio State, like you said, great shout there. It's going to be a great season, I think, like it has been the last couple. I mean, last season was fantastic too. The year before was really good. NIL has brought about that, which is excellent. We've needed it. It's not healthy for the sport when there's only 3 teams that can win it any
No.
given year. So it's better. I think that certain schools though need to catch up real quick, because the way college football's working with money right now, I don't want to say left behind in terms of like realignment sense, but like if Florida State doesn't get their stuff together, I'm worried about them. If Clemson doesn't get their stuff together, because Clemson is not a historic blue blood. Like if Clemson goes 5
Right.
years with losing records, I am worried about what happens to that school. Michigan State and Wisconsin, 2 Big Ten teams who have always been kind of in the mix in the Big Ten, really bad last few years. It's just schools like that I think really need to start turning around. Even like a school in your conference like TCU, not long ago was in the national championship game. I don't know what TCU has done since. It seems like they've underperformed almost every
Yeah.
season since. And just schools like that, you kind of gotta you gotta get ahead of this. And one thing that BYU's done is they've timed their ascent really well.
Yes.
BYU's been kicking it for the last couple of years. They've been really playing well, and this is perfect in this NIL era. And I think that's an important factor going forward for teams in terms of scheduling and who you want to be around. What does your long-term outlook look like? Because it seems more pivotal now than it ever has. I don't know. Am I off on that, or does that sound like something that's hitting
No,
the mark?
no, I think it's exactly right. I very well said. It's competitive because the talent spread around. We've also got maybe some of the best coaches that we've ever had in college football in this modern time, at more schools than ever before. At the end of the day, Florida State and Clemson could be the next Nebraska.
USC is the next Nebraska.
USC. Let's talk about USC.
It's another one.
So these
Yeah.
are brands now. USC is a blue blood now. Nebraska is a blue blood, and
Mm-hmm.
they obviously they've earned their respect. Florida State's won national championship in the last 10 years, or what is it, 12 years. So these are brands that should be good, but as far as BYU timing their ascendancy right, you got these other schools that are going backwards.
Yes,
and
they're making room
I
for you.
think I think it is a massive risk that you could end up finding yourself in a 10 or a 12 or 15-year cycle of not great.
Yeah.
Look at West Virginia. West
Yes.
Virginia was in and around the national championship conversation for a couple years there. They have been terrible in the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah,
No
not
disrespect to West Virginia. I want West Virginia to be good. They're a great program for a lot of reasons. That's one school that and like another one I'd be worried about too. I don't know what you think about Kyle Whittingham leaving Utah, but that seems like it could have profound effects to the people over there, to the Utes. And I know you won't speak of pure unbiased, but I mean, what is your assessment of Utah right now?
I think that, well, Utah's paying him $15 million not to coach this year. They paid him off when they let him go. And in doing that, they mortgaged their future. Money that they're already not the most wealthy school in the country anyway. So him going to Michigan is such a mess right now. They're very distracted. Kyle Whittingham is going to win football games up there for them. I think he'll do fine, but I don't think their national championship run. I don't think they get into the playoff this year. And Kyle has been waiting for that phone call. It came when he was 60. Now he's 65 years old or whatever, and he's coaching at Michigan. That's great for them. But I think for Utah, it is a massive upgrade. And the reason is because these coaches that are over 20 years at a school that were pre-NIL and then they were NIL, like let's talk about Oklahoma State. Now let's talk about at Utah. They're still adapting or trying to adapt to the way modern football is run and administered and managed, and there's reasons why they're not where they used to be. Morgan Scalley's the new coach up at Utah. He played for Utah. He's a great guy, and he's going to win some football games. They're going to be okay. I would say Utah is a perennial 10-2 school in the Big 12 moving forward. Maybe they're 9-3 this year. I didn't really dive into their schedule, but I think Utah is going to do well. Do they get to the championship game for the conference? I don't think so. But Kyle Whittingham at Utah, he brings a certain savoir-faire. He has good experience. He's very smart. The question is going to be, that administration is old, right? It's a great-grandparent university, god of all college football for a very long time, for wins and everything else. Kyle's going to come in and try to institute rules. He's a rules guy. Enforcement is something else. Michigan has been one of the most permissive schools for a while now. Jim Harbaugh was super permissive. He let his guys go out and do all kinds of stuff, and they turned around and had to cheat to win. So I don't know how it's going to work. Do these guys want to be told what to do by a guy who just came over from Utah, right? If he had come from the NFL, okay, he's got some street cred. He won a Super Bowl. Okay, yeah, you're coming to Michigan. Let's go win some national championships. Kyle, what experience does he have to go up there and tell these people what they wanted, what they should or shouldn't do, how their enforcement should work, who they should recruit? It'll be fascinating to see where that goes.
Not only that, they have 7,000 billion eyes on them after everything that's happened. And Ohio State has one of the largest fan bases in the country. Mm-hmm. And every single one of those fans is a professional investigative journalist when it comes down to anything they can find on Michigan. So they have to, literally anything they do wrong is going to be caught almost instantly from now on. So I think they're going to have to, one, rebuild trust in general, and two, the program's going to need some rebuilding as well. And also, imagine being a player that just came up to there and then your coach is gone because he was going crazy on a girl. It's like the whole thing. It's like, I don't know how they didn't have a mass exodus of transfers. I think part of it's because they had a decent coach come in from Utah. Not, like you said, not someone from the NFL, not someone that's, super prestigious, but someone with enough to maybe maintain some sense of order. But I just even as much talent as they have, I don't see any way that they can put this together. It's not like they're Remember the Titans. Like, they're not going to come together and overcome all the adversity that they're going to be facing this season. And the same thing with Texas Tech. Like, if they had a quarterback, they would probably be a good team again. But after everything that's happened over the past 2 months, I don't see any way that I don't think they're going to make the Big 12 championship game, even though they have a lot of talent on their team still. Yeah, I don't think they'll make the Big 12 championship game. Utah is missing their coach that was helping them be as good as they were. So it really depends on who the new guy is and how well he does and everything else around it. But as far as the Big 12 goes, I think it's BYU versus the field for who's going to win that the championship for you guys this year, which means that you should be in the playoff if you win that. And then you're going to have no more Big 12 teams besides the conference championship winner in the playoff. And then you're going to have, your 17 SEC teams that I all think they should be in it. And then you'll have maybe 3 spots left for the at-large teams, because you'll have your 5 conference champions. You'll have 3 cemented at-large people, like probably Notre Dame, one of the Big Ten people, whether it be Ohio State or Oregon, whoever loses that championship game, and then the same thing with the SEC, and then you have a couple others. You're only going to have like 2 to 3 open spots at the end of the year, like you did last year, whereas Miami and Bama shouldn't have been in, as we all know. Who also, I think Bama's going to have a horrible year this year. But it's going to be a very interesting last few weeks of the season, and I think BYU's, whether you lose Notre Dame or lose big Notre Dame, I think you're going to be in the playoff picture. And I think it's going to be you're going to have a good shot at winning it a few games in the playoffs as well.
I think that might segue to maybe the last section of the podcast. And we have you here, Nate. You're a BYU guy for sure. Maybe we'll have you preview a bit of what this team is this year, what your expectations are, and maybe what we could expect when we come to Provo. That might be great for the Notre Dame audience who doesn't always follow every other team as closely as we do our own.
BYU coming to Provo, Utah is a bucket list item. You will never be treated better. They give you ice cream at the end of the third quarter. Everybody will thank you for being there. Absolutely.
Like they just handed it out to me in the stands?
Yes, they go through. Everybody gets, all the visitors get ice cream. Yeah.
What?
So, yeah. So I'll just move on from that. But yeah, you'll get ice cream. And
what kind? No, don't move on. What kind?
I don't know. I'm not a visitor. I've never had ice cream, but they give it. You guys get a block of seats, and they come through at the end of the third quarter, and they'll give you ice cream. So
they don't throw it at us, right? They hand it to us.
No,
and we get to eat
they
it?
hand it to you. Yes.
Tim's thinking with his stomach, so
I guess, yeah.
for my co-host.
I'm a big boy.
But that is pretty awesome.
Again, it just a little different, right? A little odd, but so you will have. You've been to Provo before. It's been a little while, but you will have the best time while you're there, win or lose. I think at the end of the day, BYU's defense could be top 15 this year, maybe top 10. That's where they're going to be winning football games. But the difference is this year we have now a returning quarterback. We have a running back that ran for 1,300 yards last year, and he's going to be playing in the NFL next year. And tight ends that can fly. One's a 5-star transfer from Oregon. If they can score, I'm going to say the same thing I did last year. If BYU can get to 27 or 28 points, they're going to win that football game. So the question is CJ Carr going to be able to generate enough offense to get past that range? Now, if BYU will still win games that go past that, but our defense has to stand up. Defense has to be there and cannot let you guys just go off, because your running backs, fantastic. You have great offensive and defensive lines. And you have a quarterback who people talk about is going to be in the NFL at some point. These things are going to matter most in the game. But BYU's defense is back to front, so they build through their defensive backfield. The linebackers, their two linebackers, we had a transfer from Cal, Ulave. So anyways, he was like the one top or second best transfer portal player that has ever come to BYU. And so playing back to front, the defensive line is improved, but really it's the linebackers and the defensive backfield that they're long, lean, 6'2", 6'3" DBs that are cover corners. They press. They'll play soft zone behind that, and then they let their linebackers provide pressure. So in my opinion, if you guys' offensive line stands up and says, we're here to dominate, we're going to win at the offensive lineman position, you guys have a chance you could do that. It's not going to be no 400-yard offensive game, though. It'll be 250 to 300 in offense, and you can win that game. But your defense is going to have to keep down an offense, which is much improved from last year.
So what would you say are the fan expectations for BYU this year? Is it to win the Big 12? Is it to be in the playoff, 10-2?
Yes, it's to win a game in the playoff, not just get there, but to actually be successful. I think everybody knows win or lose the Notre Dame game will set perceptions, but it really doesn't have anything to do with the conference. So BYU and Utah play each other. The reason Texas Tech has an easier path to the championship game is they skipped this year both BYU and Utah, which that's a horrible thing for the Big 12.
They have Houston still, right?
They play Houston, and they play both Arizona schools. Arizona, they could be good this year. I mean, they come to Provo the second week of the year, and BYU has to beat them. Who knows what you're going to get out of ASU, but so their schedule's fairly easy, is all I was going to say.
I've got TCU, Arizona, Houston, and Utah as the 4 schools that are going to be in the top 5 of the Big 12.
Okay. So you think like Texas Tech regresses then?
What was that?
You say that you think Texas Tech regresses?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think they have to. I don't see how they would be there if all these things didn't happen. But it's going to be such a distraction, even though it's over. I don't see how they're going to drop 2 of those games at least.
One thing I like about the Big 12 is the parity in the league. So to me, it's impossible to kind of predict how anyone's going to finish, because it could be, you never know who's going to make a run in that conference. It's a very close conference. I wanted to ask you about the schedule, because I got it up here now, assuming this is football and not basketball. So you start Utah Tech, that's at home. Then you play Arizona at home. You're at Colorado State, at TCU, home to Iowa State, and then you play Notre Dame. I'm sure there's a few bye weeks in there. What do you think your record's going to be going into that game? Is there an expectation that you'll be undefeated, or maybe drop one of those games early and kind of bounce back?
Colorado State's an ugly game. I wish we weren't doing that. That was one of the legacy games that they didn't buy out of for some reason, but I think it's a massive mistake. It's just not a good time to play those 3 games. Arizona's going to be fantastic, but my expectations, and I think most BYU fans' expectations, is that we'll be 6-0. The TCU trip is probably the biggest question mark, in my opinion. Arizona, I think if we were playing in Tucson, Arizona would have an advantage. They took them to double overtime last year, but coming to Provo, or was that 2 years ago? I can't remember. Coming to Provo is something different.
Yep.
And we play these night games past 6 p.m. Eastern time. BYU's a ridiculous 34-3 over the last years.
And I can't imagine.
It's insane.
I can't imagine the Notre Dame game not being in prime time for BYU in the conference. I imagine ESPN's going to use one of the slots.
It'll have to be. It will absolutely have to be.
It will be magical.
Could be big noon.
Yeah, don't say that. I don't want.
Why are you trying to ruin my trip?
Why are you trying to ruin my trip? A night game. We got to put this.
It would be better
this needs to be featured
as a night game. Although as a Notre Dame fan, I'd rather play that as early as possible. Thing.
So I made this argument a few times last year, Nathan, and it's, as a Notre Dame fan, you're on an away game. Yes, you want the earlier kickoff because it gives you a better advantage. However, if I am going to the game, I am selfish, and I want the night game so I have all day to enjoy it, not just having to wake up early and rush to a game. So I am also hoping it's a night game.
It'll make for spectacular TV, and it seems like this is kind of going to be the hottest ticket of the season, which I understand. Notre Dame is really hyped this year.
What's the attendance at BYU off the top of your head for that stadium?
65,000 when it's full to the rafters.
That's good.
So the away teams, usually when I'm buying tickets for an away game, depending who you're playing, it limits how many tickets you can get. So
Right.
like for Syracuse, I could have bought the stadium. For BYU, I could only get 2 tickets.
Yeah.
And so usually it's no less than 4, even for the big games. So the fact that we only got 2, I knew it was going to be a smaller venue and a more expensive ticket aftermarket, just because it's so limited and everyone's going to want to go to that game. The one thing that I do want to say, and I wanted to get your honest opinion on this. So when I was at Salt Lake last time, it was when I was in shape coming out of college and I was training. I was in physical training, but like I was running and stuff. I could never run more than like 2 or 3 miles at most because I hate running. When I went for a run in Salt Lake City, I ran, I think, 13 miles totally fine. Now, that's the opposite of what you'd expect for a sea level difference of going up in elevation.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm just abnormal. Maybe the moon gravity was helping me out, make me a little lighter. I don't know. But what do you see when teams that are lower elevation come up to Provo? Do you see a physical difference in that, or is it negligible?
No, it is. It's thinner air. 4,500 feet, something like that, is what the stadium sits at, and it definitely hurts. You're not on the ocean though, right? If you're next to an ocean, generally you don't play real well in Provo. But if you're in the interior and you're not traveling, you're only coming 1 time zone or 2 time zones.
It's basically 1 because they're right on the edge of the central eastern time zone. So
okay, well, at the end of the day, generally, yes, it has an effect. I've never heard of anybody doing better unless they've gone out and like acclimated, but you did well. So good for you. That's awesome. But I think you will be tired. Yeah.
There's a lot they're going to have to prepare for in that game because it's also the first game that really matters for Notre Dame that season. Not to I do think the Notre Dame schedule is a lot better than the general public is giving it credit for because they play 10 Power 2 schools or Power 4 schools. And you schedule these ahead of time, you don't know how good they're going to be. But just to run through the Notre Dame schedule before we play BYU, it's neutral site at Wisconsin, home to Rice, home to Michigan State, home to Purdue, at North Carolina, home to Stanford. So those are the games leading up to BYU. There's a bye week after BYU, so we'll be very tired probably heading into that game. But still, you would expect Notre Dame to be undefeated coming into that. I mean, they better be. If they're not,
our schedule is much easier than BYU's going into that game.
Yes, but the Notre Dame schedule picks up after that. I think SMU is going to be a very good team this year.
They're at the end.
We're going to play them late November, but. Yeah, so for us, that's really the first game of meaning. So you might be able to catch us there a little bit too, being untested, kind of cakewalking through the season, because Provo's not going to be a cakewalk. Even if Notre Dame comes in and plays their best ball, I don't see that being an easy game at any point.
No, it really won't. I expect it to be the most. I think it's a 10-point margin is about what I would predict if Notre Dame was going to win. I could also see BYU winning by 2 touchdowns. I'll tell you this, it'll be one of the loudest stadiums that you've ever been in, Tim. You wouldn't think it would be, right? 65,000 is not 100,000.
And it's pretty open air.
It's not 102,000. And if you look at it from top down, it looks fairly up in the air. But for some reason, it is extremely loud down at field level. And
I won't be that close. So I'll be up in the bleachers and the nosebleeds of my ice cream.
Well, you'll be okay then. At the end of the day, it's always one of the loudest stadiums that teams talk about afterwards. They're like, wow, okay, we didn't really prepare for that. Marcus Freeman's a smart guy. He and Kalani are friends. I really doubt he's going to get caught off guard, and they're going to come here unprepared. You guys are going to be able to handle the press. You'll be able to handle the noise. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to, are you going to be practiced enough? Are you going to be tuned up enough by Wisconsin, your first game? I'm trying to think of one of those schools that could give you a game this year besides until you get to BYU, and
UNC maybe because they got Bill Belichick if he decides to start coaching for real, like he did it. But that's it.
So. At the end of the day, I think it's going to come down to your game day prep, and I would not be shocked if Stanford week, the coaching staff isn't also planning for BYU.
Yeah, that's the one. Like Marcus Freeman has already lost to Stanford once when he shouldn't have. I don't see that ever happening again.
We always find a way to lose a random game to Stanford.
That's
so
what
I'm not overlooking them ever.
Like, if Notre Dame beats BYU and Miami this year, by all intents and purposes, they should be 12-0 because they should beat every other team. But Marcus Freeman has yet to run the easy gauntlet and not drop one of those games along the way. So you can't say yes, but you feel like it should. Like he almost, and it's a common thought among Notre Dame fans is it's almost like losing helps Notre Dame because then Marcus Freeman is pissed and yells at his players more and gets the more out of them. Like when they lost, I don't know if they make it to the national championship game if they don't lose to NIU that one year.
Losing to NIU was essential for that season, as weird as that sounds.
Yeah.
No, it does. It refocuses your energy. You're like, what the hell's going on here? You're unacceptable. You can't lose games like this at home. I mean, it's just whatever, right? You have to play and prepare for the people that are in front of you, and you certainly aren't supposed to take anybody for granted. At the end of the day, I think it's going to be a fantastic game. I think if Notre Dame beats BYU, they're in the playoff. I've said that a few times now since the game was announced, because of their schedule, and you can lose to Miami and still get in. So all you have to do is get to 12. And you guys got that spot. And this year, I don't want to be 11. I don't even want to be 10. I want to win the conference, but be ranked 5th or 6th because then we get a home game.
Yeah.
And then you can get something started in the playoff.
Yeah.
That's great. Tim, a quick question before we let Nate go. Miami's probably preseason a scarier team than BYU, but with that game being at home in November of all times, and then going to Provo, do you think BYU is actually the toughest game on the schedule this year?
You're asking me or Nathan?
Asking you. He's biased.
I do think that. I think BYU is probably going to be the tougher of the two games because of everything you just said. Also, the way that Notre Dame lost to Miami last year and everything that went around it, with all the playoff stuff, the ACC. Cheating and bribing and collusioning and cahooting, all the cahoots they're in. Everything about Marcus Freeman is going to have Notre Dame beat Miami by no less than 500 points.
It was like USC last year when people were talking about the rivalry not being extended. I told my USC friend, we'll get him on the show, and I said, if there's one bet I'm making this year is we're going to beat the crap out of you at Notre Dame, and they did. And if there's one bet I would make this year is we are going to blow the doors off Miami. There's no way we're losing that game. That might be some, confidence that's not deserved. But Nate, I know your time is very valuable. I want to thank you for coming on the show and for having me on your show. I did want to say
one thing before we go because you talked about how loud Provo is. So I have 3 stadiums that I think were the loudest. Virginia Tech, which by the way, under the Sandman, very underwhelming. But during the game, very loud in that stadium. I was 2 rows from the field, and I couldn't hear myself think. The other one that was super loud, this would be number 2, was when Notre Dame played BYU in Allegiant Stadium.
Yeah,
it's because it's indoors.
That came through on the TV.
Yeah, it was super loud there. It was a real atmosphere.
Yep.
I know it's not going to be as 50-50 as it was that game because you are the home team. But if it's anything close to as exciting crowd-wise as that game was, I am very much going to enjoy it.
At the end of the day, we just want to have a good game. That's all I want. That's all I want from anybody we play outside of Utah is just let's go out and play some football, Let's go have some fun and whatever happens, happens. But I really appreciate you guys having me on your show. Thank you so much. I really appreciate Dylan coming on my show. Do more of this stuff. I love it.
Give yourself a plug.
Myself?
Yes.
College Football Mafia. Look us up on YouTube, or you can find me on Twitter, and it's hard for me to say my name, BOMB3R _ college football, or CFB Mafia. I hate that. Anyway, just look us up on College Football Mafia on YouTube, and we have a fantastic team. Moen and Ute are my partners, and we put out amazing stuff, not so much about teams. We don't do really in-depth breakdowns week to week and who had the best offense and stuff. We don't care about that stuff generally. The stuff we do think that matters is governance and the legal issues and how do we make college football better. That's really what our core is, and then realignment's always out there. So, anyways, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much, Tim. It's nice to meet you again.
Nice meeting you. Thanks for coming.
Oh,
Thanks, Nate. We really appreciate you. See ya. Well, thanks for Nate to come on the show. That was a great one. I think we'll be saving some of our off-season talk for another episode, Tim. Does that sound good?
Yeah, we haven't been talking for 90 plus minutes, so I'm good with that.
Agreed. I'm gonna enjoy my Saturday night. You guys enjoy your Saturday night. The season is around the corner. Get your Rudy watching going. Get it scheduled. Bother your roommates. That's what I'm gonna do. Gonna make them
sure
watch
you
it.
have all the stuff you need for the season. Your jerseys, if you're going to games, make sure you have your tailgating stuff in order. I do not. This is a reminder to myself. My life is in shambles right now. Everything is everywhere. If you've tailgated with me, you know I have a giant tent. I need to find that. As big as it is, I'm surprised I can't find it. It should stand out.
I have
pretty,
half the mind to edit this podcast when you said my life is in shambles and just cut it off there. Nothing else. Just Tim's life is in shambles. That's how we're ending the podcast.
Well, I know how
if you know where his
shambles
tent
it is.
is,
My
let 'em know.
transmission blew on my Jeep Thursday.
Oof.
And that's not even the top 5 of my biggest problems right now. It's been fun, but for all you fans, make sure you get all your stuff together. Your jerseys, your scheduling, if you're going to games, who you're going with, how you're getting there, your hotels, all that fun stuff. If you haven't done it yet, you should do it now.
Sounds good. All right. Give us a nice 5-star review on wherever you get your podcast. Give us a follow at Horseman Pod on Twitter, on Instagram, wherever else we are on social media. We appreciate you guys. This is a great community we've built. Appreciate Nate for coming on the show. There's something about fan-made content that just really resonates with myself and I think a lot of you, which is what we love to do. You know, we're one of you guys.
And I've got a better mic now, so you all can hear me, and I don't sound like a church mouse the entire episode. Sorry about that last one, folks.
You sound great, Tim. It's
Thank
good
you.
to see you. But go Irish.
Go Irish.